That's how I checked in on Vladdy. Do you think they do the trade?
The A's will make the playoffs, and they will even make the divisional.
Oh my goodness! Big Christmas has tied.
Hit well out to right center field. Jones still on the move, running out of room, and he makes
Hits one in the air, left center field, back it goes! Harper, the swing of his life! Freeman hits the ball to right field. She is gone! Gibby, meet Freddie! Start the party, Los Angeles! Your Dodgers have won the World Series!
All right, everyone. Welcome back. Another episode of Hanging in the Dugout, episode 5 now. Been a couple weeks with some New Year's stuff, getting back into school and whatnot. But after being all settled in, we're ready to kind of jump back into stuff. So, Matt, if you're ready, I'm ready.
Yeah, I'm ready. I mean, it's been over like silent and then news and then silent and then news. So
yeah, there's been some kind of hot and cold activity as of late. But one of the main things that kicked off since the last time was that the Dodgers picked up their first international free agent signing in Ha-Seong Kim, infielder from the KBO, moving on over. Pretty good numbers for the most part. Definitely much more of a contact guy. I'm not sure how I feel about the signing necessarily, because like infield is already kind of stacked as it is. But I mean, I think Kim brings a really good set of skills to the table for the Dodgers in a lot of ways, with the contact especially, and then also he's got a really good glove. So I think Dodgers got a good guy in Kim here. What do you think, Matt?
Yeah, I mean, I think, I'm surprised another couple of teams didn't make a bigger push for him. We saw that Tani had a big influence on Kim coming to the Dodgers. Remember when he signed, Tani took to Instagram and let us know that. But where does he fit with the Dodgers? I mean, obviously, I think he's going to fit in that 9-hole to play second base, but it's like, I don't know. It's a weird signing by the Dodgers. So
yeah, I agree a little bit just because they have a lot of infield pieces already, especially trying to move Mookie back to the infield, whether that's at short or at second for the 2025 season. But they also made a couple moves in order to kind of help bring him in. One of them being DFAing Diego Cartaya, which they did end up trading him through the DFA to the Twins, I believe. So, I mean, at first I was more kind of concerned about them not getting anything for a guy that was such a high-valued prospect. But then kind of after the DFA being able to move him via trade to Minnesota, I think they get a little bit more value out of it. Still kind of a confusing move all around. But
yeah,
anyways,
I think, with Cartaya, I just don't think, last year he struggled at the plate a lot for himself. And I think that Dodgers they saw that and were like, well, let's cut ties. It was weird that they DFA'd him of all people, but
yeah, I feel like they have a couple of different options they could have gone with, especially some of more of their infield talent maybe, because I mean, Will Smith is still probably at his peak and at a really good spot in his career where he could last another 3 or 4 years, but he's probably also starting to hit that point in a catcher's career where they start to just like regress a little bit just because of the wear and tear on knees and whatnot, and all that. But I mean, you said it, looking kind of at Cartaya's numbers, he was up in the higher 8-9 area for OPS in 2022. In 2021 he had over 1,000 OPS, but then the last 2 years he hasn't gotten over the 700 mark. Kind of confused on where stuff went wrong for him, but kind of like at first glance it's a weird move, but it's probably the right move honestly for the Dodgers, shipping him out while he's still got some use to him and probably a little bit of value.
Yeah, but in other news, to make room for Kim, they also traded Gavin Lux to the Cincinnati Reds. This was a surprising move. I like the move for the Reds a little bit, but this was a little surprising because he thought they were going to platoon Kim and Lux at that second base role, and then they just were like, all right, well, we'll just give the starting job to Kim. So
Yeah, they definitely had the option to platoon the two of them, or at least have like a position battle a little bit. But moving Lux out definitely brings in the need of like a more of a utility guy, middle infield guy, with them trading India back earlier in the offseason. But I think it also just gives Lux kind of a fresh start where he can build off of what he did with the Dodgers the last 2-ish kind of years and really give him to kind of cement himself as a full-time starter.
yeah, I mean, I think the other good thing for Lux would be, just to go to a new team and, not only just go to a new team, but, go to a fun and exciting team, that can make some noise in 2025.
Yeah, you got a lot of talent in Cincinnati, especially with Ellie and Tyler Stevenson and Hunter Green on the starting pitching side of things. Looking at just kind of like the last 2 full seasons he played, because he didn't play in 23 with the injury, he got the most amount of games he ever played last year in 139. Career high in home runs, still not like a high number. He only had 10. But the OPS is kind of a concern because that's only just above the 700 mark. So hopefully for Lux, because he showed up in the playoffs for the Dodgers at certain points when they needed him most. Didn't have a great postseason run overall, but had a few key moments. I think the most important thing for Lux here is just taking the good that he got out of LA and transitioning that to Cincinnati the best way he can.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see what happens, but I think, I like the move for the Reds. I mean, they didn't give much up for him, so.
Yeah, overall, I think decent kind of budget move for Cincinnati. Not really a lose-lose in any way. If he does well, it's a big win for them. If he doesn't pan out, it's not the worst thing in the world. So overall, I think it's a solid kind of risk move for the Reds. And then on the other side of things with like the free agent pitching market and whatnot, because we haven't really seen a lot of that. Starting pitching got picked up a little bit in the last 2 weeks, starting with Charlie Morton signing with the Orioles for a year and $15 million. Charlie had a good run in Atlanta. Only problem I have with Charlie is that he's 41 years old. And I mean, you can pitch for as long as you want, but obviously the gas runs out at some point. And last year, Charlie didn't have a great year. He needed to kind of be part of that rotation just because of how banged up they were, but he didn't have the best year. 8-10 and a 4.19 ERA. Still decent strikeout numbers with 167 and 165 innings, but the Orioles rotation is built up of a lot younger guys, which is why I think Corbin Burnes fits so well, because he's still on more like the youthful side of things, being like late 20s, early 30s. But he had that veteran presence. He has that experience. He's won a Cy Young. Like, that's the guy you want to head the rotation. And now bringing Charlie in, you're kind of putting that ace responsibilities on Grayson Rodriguez, which I'm not sure if he's quite ready for yet. So I'm not 100% positive about this move for the Orioles.
Yeah, I'm surprised Atlanta didn't bring him back to at least be like the 5 going in Atlanta rotation. Because, I mean, they really right now only have like a solid 1 through 3. But
yeah, you still got Sale. You still got...
well, I guess 4. I mean, because they have
Strider's
Sale,
coming back.
Strider coming back, Lopez, and that Swellbach. So...
yeah, you got a solid 4 there.
I don't know. I thought he was always going to re-sign with the Braves, and then he goes to the Orioles. But, I mean...
yeah, I mean, good for Charlie that he can extend his career another year, but I'm not really a big fan of this for Baltimore, to be honest with you.
Yeah. Well, speaking of Baltimore, Luis Castillo came back around the trade talks. Rumored to the Baltimore Orioles. He was, remember, we talked about in the last couple episodes, he was rumored to the Red Sox. Now, do you think this is an effort like by the Mariners to like shop him? Like they just... or do you think his name's coming up?
It could be one of two things, to be honest with you. It could be just Seattle kind of shopping around to see what they could potentially get for him and see if it's worth making that deal. But when you have a rotation as stacked as the Mariners, it could also be a thing where you're looking to build more on those 2 through 4 guys and get some offense in return for Luis Castillo, because Seattle desperately needs that in order to really be a contending team. But I mean, I don't really see Luis going anywhere. I think it would be great for Baltimore if they did end up picking him up, but at the same time, I really just don't see that happening, to be completely honest.
It's just like, I think his name has just been, coming up a lot. And I don't think they're trying to shop him. I mean, I think he's a good player. And when you're a good player, your name comes up.
Yeah, he's an ace on a lot of major league staffs. I think he would be a great pickup anywhere that they decide to shop him.
It's just weird that I guess it's just weird that his name always comes up. Like it's not.
Yeah, you don't see Gilbert, Kirby, Wu, any of those guys kind of getting tossed in the mix. It's just pretty much Luis Castillo.
Yeah, but speaking of the other big time pitcher that everyone's keeping their eye on is Roki Sasaki. Now we're down to the final three teams. So Dodgers, Padres, Blue Jays. So I don't know if you saw it, Dylan, but there was a video surfaced the other day of him throwing at Petco Park, and you can tell it's hit.
I mean, I wouldn't go too crazy over that. I feel like that's kind of what most teams would do. Kind of like just see him throw in person, have a workout in their team gear and whatnot. I understand why people would kind of take maybe a higher reaction to that because they didn't see something from Toronto and the LA meeting hasn't happened yet, so we haven't seen any footage from there. But San Diego is looking more and more likely, which bums me out a little bit because I really liked my Chicago theory.
Well, I will say the other thing that was interesting about the Padres. Now, it came out from Sasaki's agent, Joe Wolf, in the first meeting that no players were in attendance. Like, he didn't want any players to influence his decision. But in the second meeting, Yu Darvish, Manny Machado, and Jackson Merrill were all there.
Right.
So, I think,
that's kind of weird, yeah.
I didn't think, with the Padres, they had the big lawsuit that came out, and I thought that was going to hurt them, but it actually it hasn't. So I think the Padres are still my pick. So
yeah, it kind of seems like it's a two-headed race, even though there's three teams left. Toronto really just kind of is a team that happens to get thrown into the top three of finalists every year, and then doesn't really seem to end up being the lucky winner. So I kind of see the same thing happening here, but with kind of what you said about the recent development, and I think the Padres did a great job with that meeting. I know that players weren't initially supposed to be there, but you have your quote-unquote captain and Machado there. You have a guy that Sasaki has looked up to and can mentor in Darvish, and you have a guy that very easily could have won NL Rookie of the Year in any other year in Merrill there, showing you the young kind of past and current experience and success that they have at three different stages. So I think San Diego did a really good job with their meeting. I am curious to see how LA's meeting turns out, but I would kind of agree with you in the fact that San Diego's got a good look for them right now in landing Sasaki.
Yeah, I mean, I think Toronto, to me, is always like, they're there, but they're not. It's like...
Yeah, it was the same thing with Ohtani last offseason.
And it's because there's no draw to it. There's no draw. It's just, there's no draw. But the big thing that I think people don't realize with Sasaki is... What's up? Yet he'll come over and make his initial bonus money that he'll get off the signing. And he's going to make the league minimum for 3 years. And then he goes to arbitration for 3 years.
Yeah.
He's
not making big bucks like that. Yeah.
Instead of winning one more year where he can basically get paid whatever, he's coming over now. So for him, it's believed that money doesn't matter and just being the best player.
Yeah, I respect that to him, to be honest with you.
But you also think, well, a team's going to have him for 6 years under control.
Yeah.
That's a lot of control for a team. So
the team that ends up getting him will be very lucky.
Yeah.
But I wanted to come back to what you said at the beginning, kind of like more ask why do you think there's no draw to Toronto? Why do you think Toronto keeps like coming up short with all these free agent signings every year?
Well, I think, the big thing is you've heard players have to fight the Canadian government over taxes. So I think that I know is it's also cold, and I think the taxes that hurts players a lot because I think it's Josh Donaldson still might be in like a lawsuit with the Canadian government or something like that. I believe so. I have to go double check that. But I've heard that players have had trouble with taxes with Canada. It's cold. I know they just redid the ballpark, but apparently some of their facilities are not up to date.
So working on that a little bit.
And you also think, like, if you live in the United States, like, around in the 50 States, if you live on the West Coast, now you got to go all the way east
and up.
Yeah, so it's like,
Yeah.
I don't know.
I could see that
not the
being
biggest
kind of like
draw.
a little bit of a pain, but I think with that, I think the team in itself is in kind of just a weird in-between position where they have some good pieces that haven't necessarily like played up to what they can be and what they should be, to be honest with you. Like, Bo had probably his worst year ever last year, but on the flip side of that, Vlad had his best year since 2021. I think right now they're in a spot where they're in a position to succeed, but they need a couple more pieces to be added for it to really start seeing that success, and I'm not sure if other players are really in that kind of state of mind to where they want to be part of that build, where they really just want to go more and win right now. So unfortunately for Toronto, that's kind of where they're at, but who knows, maybe they will land Sasaki, and that's the start of like a big turnaround for them.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing, you brought up Vlad. We've heard the reports of his contract extension, and we've heard that the Blue Jays and Vlad are about $100 million apart from each other. And, they were able, we just had arbitration settlements go. They did settle on that for his upcoming year of $28.5 million.
Mm-hmm.
But, like you said, when the team's not winning, it's hard to go play baseball in Toronto for a coming free agent. So,
I mean, I don't mind it being a Yankees fan, but I will say, like, the mid-2010s teams, like the team with the Bautista fight and his bat flip and all that, those teams were really exciting to watch. And I think it would be a good thing for baseball if they return to that state sooner rather than later. For me, I don't know for them, like, how to get there, just because they are so in the middle. It's just a tough time in Toronto right now because they're kind of right on the edge there, but they're like taking one step forward and two steps back. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And, they're having to overpay a lot of these free agents. Like, they're forking out big time money. I mean, it's just like, I feel like they're just like they're always in the rumors, but like nothing's going to happen.
They're not putting effort out there. Like, they are trying to really grab some of these players, but they're just losing out to bigger markets, honestly, better teams. And it's just unfortunate for them right now that they can't really get out of this hole that they've kind of dug themselves for.
I feel like sometimes, like, a lot of the baseball reporters will just they just knew that, like, Blue Jays are looking at a player, so then they'll just overhype it to where
they'll just throw it out there. Yeah.
And then everyone's like, oh, well, Toronto's going to make the big time splash, and then they never do.
So, but moving back towards kind of veteran free agents that are getting signed out here, Justin Verlander left the Astros and decided to go to the Bay, signed with the Giants for a 1-year, $15 million deal. I don't like this at all for San Francisco. I know that they've had trouble kind of after their kind of miracle season in 2021. I know that they've had trouble kind of staying consistent at that rate. I don't think Verlander's the guy you go out and get to try and help fix that.
I think he'll be traded by the trade deadline. I
He'll
don't see him lasting.
Right. He'll turn 42 right around when pitchers and catchers report. He had the worst season he's had since his rookie year last year. He went 5-6 with a 5.48 ERA. He's older. Like, you can't really do a lot once you hit that stage, kind of in the same aspect as Charlie Morton. Obviously, it being a little different with Verlander since he's a former MVP and Cy Young. But, I mean, the stuff's just not as there as it once was. And for the Giants, maybe not a bad idea to try him out in the bullpen. You had troubles with Camilo Doval last year in the closer role. And I know Ryan Walker stepped up big time for them. And so did both Rogers twins. But maybe not a bad idea to see if that works out better for him as more of a short relief guy, just to see if you can really get that $15 million that you're dishing out.
Yeah, I think a team would probably, depending on how he performs, I feel like if he performs well, a team would call the Giants at the trade deadline if they're willing to trade him. The Giants aren't doing too hot. But yeah, I don't know. This is like, I don't know, like the Blue Jays and the Giants just throw money
They're
out.
both
they don't
two
know
teams that have been kind of in the
They don't know
middle.
where to spend it. It's like,
Yeah.
all right. It's like, I feel like they're just a second fiddle to everyone else. But
The Giants have kind of have a little bit worse luck than the Blue Jays, obviously, with the whole arson judge, Carlos Correa, even Shohei, and even all the way back to Bryce Harper within like the last 6 years. They did get a little bit of a break, though, getting Adames earlier in the offseason, so good for them. But you're 100% right here of how the Blue Jays and the Giants are both kind of in the same spot here. And they're both trying to make moves and then end up having to settle for stuff that kind of keeps them in the same place, unfortunately.
Yep.
So, not a big fan of the Verlander signing, to be honest.
Well, speaking of the Blue Jays again, Anthony Santander has been rumored to the Blue Jays.
They threw out an offer at him.
And
you think he goes to Toronto?
I don't think not.
Oh, I thought that's what you said. My bad.
I think the offer was thrown out there, and they tried to force the hand a little bit, but I don't think he ends up there.
I mean, 4 years, $82 million for a guy that's
It's a good deal, but
really a DH, not really a right fielder. I mean, just had probably his best season of his career with 44 home runs and 102 RBIs. Like, that's pretty good money for a guy that's producing numbers like that. I don't hate that kind of move by the Blue Jays if that ends up working out for them. But kind of like you said, I feel like they'll be the runner-up in that deal. I don't know where to yet, but I don't see him going up north. Honestly, I think I see him staying in Baltimore more than I see him going to Toronto.
I either see him in Baltimore or Detroit.
I do love the Detroit idea. I think the Tigers would be a great idea.
That team is fun. Like, that team is fun to watch.
And you get some actual consistent big-time power in Santander there. They would be dangerous. They would contend with the Royals and the Guardians for that division.
So the other thing, another player was rumored to the Yanks, Dylan, is Luis Arráez, the batting champ.
Yeah.
How you feeling about this?
Passan put out a report saying that the two teams were in talks at first. And, like, I understand you kind of get your leadoff guy that you've been missing for the last couple of years since LeMahieu regressed. But at the same time, you can't DH him because Stanton, you can't put him at first base because you picked up Goldschmidt. You can't really put him anywhere else in the infield because statistically, he's on par with Gleyber Torres at defense. So it would just be like getting a lefty version of Gleyber Torres with less power and more contact. So in some ways it could work out better for you because he gets on base more. Judge, Bellinger, Stanton, Goldschmidt, they can all like drive him in potentially. So I could see it working out from that like perspective, but on the flip side of things, I'm not a huge fan of it. And then obviously a couple days after that initial report came out, they said that the talks kind of stopped and that the Yanks weren't really interested and didn't really see him as a fit. So I don't know if that will kind of circle back later on as we kind of continue through and get to spring training. But for right now, I'm happy with the fact that the Yankees are saying that he's not a fit and that they wouldn't really go after him right now.
My thing, if he gets traded to the Yankees, he has to be, or on any team, I think, to utilize him the best is you have to put him in a spot where people are on base so he can drive them in. Him hitting leadoff, in my sense, doesn't make... If he's just hitting leadoff and he's just getting on, that's good. But when you have a 323 hitter come up with runners on with runners on base and in scoring position, that puts a tax on the team. So I don't think the Padres have used him right in that kind of sense because a lot of the times he ends up hitting leadoff for them. Mm-hmm. But I feel like if he was to go to the Yanks, dropping Stanton lower in the order and putting Arráez higher up, where you could have Chisholm maybe lead off.
Where would you put Arráez in that situation?
It would be tough, but maybe 4 or 5.
You're kidding.
I'm not.
You're trolling. No way.
Dylan, you might think I'm trolling, but when you have a guy who can hit, who's a career 323, to utilize him the best is to have runners in scoring position with him up to the plate.
See, the thing with that is, though, his career high in RBIs is 69. His career high in home runs is 10. His OPS high is 861. He's not that big of like an extra base hit machine. He's had over 30 doubles the last 3 years, but he's also not the fastest. So he's not going to get out of the box and get extra bases. So if you have a guy that's on like first base with like 2 outs, he's not driving a ball really into the corner to score that guy from first. I think putting him at 4 would be like the worst thing ever.
I think putting him at leadoff is no good.
How is putting him at leadoff no good? He gets on base.
He gets on base, but then he can't steal a bag.
You don't always have to steal a bag to be a leadoff guy, though.
Yeah, but then how do you get a runner in scoring position? You steal
Fair
a bag.
point. Fair point.
Right?
You can steal a bag, but Gleyber Torres wasn't stealing bags at leadoff, and they still scored.
What I'm saying is, in this day and age, I think we look at baseball where runners in scoring position is such a valuable piece to the game.
Mm-hmm.
And with a 323 career hitter coming up with runners in scoring position, that's taxing on the pitcher.
It can be.
Right. Think
But,
how many runs he would drive in if he hit.
I don't know. Like, his hard hit percentage is a career 26.9. His average exit velo has never been over 90. He doesn't hit the ball hard. So, like, asking for that kind of, like, big-time four-hole guy that can drive runners in, he's just dropping balls in the center field, which is perfect for a leadoff guy.
Look at Alec Bohm last year.
Alec Bohm almost hit 50 doubles!
Right. Yes, he had 50 doubles, but a lot of the times he came up in that forceful spot for the Phillies and drove in runs.
But he also almost had 20 home runs. Luis Arraez was barely pushing 10.
But Arraez had a hand injury late last year. Yet he's never really hit for power, but he can still hit for power. And then if you put him...
He has 28 career home runs! What are you talking about?
But if you put him at Yankee Stadium...
I don't care what short porch you have. Luis Arraez is not a power hitter, dude. He's not going to do well in a four-hole.
I'm not saying he's a power hitter.
So you're telling me you'd rather have Luis Arraez in the four-hole there rather than Cody Bellinger or Giancarlo?
Definitely Giancarlo.
You're actually insane. You're actually insane. That's ridiculous.
Okay.
Giancarlo had like 27 home runs last year in 120 games. And he drove in like 80 people. Mainly being in the four-hole.
I mean, I just don't think teams are using Arraez right, in my opinion. But...
How, like, he was more of a leadoff guy in Minnesota. Did well in Minnesota. He was like a 1-2 guy in Miami. Because they would have Chisholm or...
in Miami.
Yeah. His best year was 2023 with Miami. But that was at the 1 or the 2. So how is he not being used right when his best year is in the spot that I would put him at?
I mean, you could put him at 2, but you have to look at the lineup for the Yankees. Like, if he goes to the Yankees, you have to get all those sluggers.
They don't have a leadoff hitter right now.
I mean, yeah, he can... Well, they can... I think they do, but...
Jazz is not a leadoff hitter. Jazz is report like Volpe. You're trolling. You're trolling.
Why not?
If you look at the numbers from Volpe being at the top of the lineup to where he's normally in the 9, 8, 7 spot, it's drastically different. He's so much better in the bottom of the order than he is at the top. Chisholm has repeatedly said multiple times he doesn't feel comfortable in the leadoff spot. So I wouldn't put him there either. So then you put Luis Arraez at 1.
Yeah, but
and then
it does no good for you at 1.
How does he do no good? He gets on base with his... He gets on base. How is that not good for a leadoff hitter?
No, he does. But he can't steal a bag.
He had 9 stolen bases last year. That was the most he's ever had.
A whopping 9.
A whopping 9, yeah.
I think
that would probably rank pretty high on the Yankees stolen base chart. I won't lie to you.
Well, let's continue the talks, but the other conversation...
God, Luis Arraez at 4. Holy moly.
I don't think it's that crazy, but...
It's quite ridiculous.
Okay, well, moving on. Jeff Hoffman, apparently I was reported by John Heyman that the Phillies had beef with Jeff Hoffman. This was like, there were some tensions because they traded for Carlos Estevez at the deadline.
Because of Estevez, yeah. I do remember seeing that. And then ultimately...
I don't know how much you want to buy into that, but I think it's...
Well, I mean, he ended up leaving, so I would say probably part of it played a part.
Because the Phillies are paying Taijuan Walker $18 million and can't
resign.
Oh,
brother. Taijuan Walker this, Taijuan Walker that. Just blame the whole guy for everything, dude.
I mean...
Did he have a bat in his hand? No.
Kind of the way he pitched.
Brother.
Batting practice for anyone. Came into Citizen Bank when he was pitching.
But in the postseason, did he pitch?
I mean, he didn't even make the rosters.
Exactly.
All right. Well, Jeff Hoffman signed a 3-year deal at $33 million to the Toronto Blue Jays. How do we feel about this?
honestly, it's a really good job by Toronto to replace Romano, who ironically
sold.
ended up going to Philly.
So
But
basically, they traded relievers. So they said,
just
Philly
about,
could
yeah.
get Romano on a 1-year deal. We'll get Jeff
We'll take
Hoffman
Jeff
on a 3.
It was interesting to see that not one but 2 teams backed out of a deal with Hoffman, being the Orioles and the Braves, when they flagged the physical for something wrong in his throwing shoulder. But I guess either the Blue Jays chose to ignore that or just didn't pick that up because they agreed to the deal and were like, all right. But I love it for Toronto because you get I think, an even better closer than Romano to back that bullpen up and hopefully kind of fix up that mess of a pitching staff that you have up north. You already got Yimi Garcia and whatnot, so I mean, I think building off that is fine. But having Hoffman, I think, is a big help.
Yeah, I mean, good deal for Toronto. It's weird that he failed 2 physicals with 2 teams.
Yeah.
I think that's alarming a little bit, but I mean, good deal for Jeff Hoffman. I wish him the best. I mean, I really liked him. I want him to come back to the Phillies, but we get Romano, and they get Jeff Hoffman. So.
Oh wait, am I crazy? Did I misspeak on that earlier? No, Blue Jays did bring him back. Okay, I thought the Mariners picked up Yimi for a second during the offseason. I completely forgot about that. No, the Blue Jays brought him back. My fault. I got confused for a second. But yeah, no, good deal by the Blue Jays. Good overall kind of replacement deal for Romano. Hopefully gets them on the right foot. But the A's continue to spend money after they've moved. Brent Rooker got a 5-year, $60 million extension with a 6-year option. And this is just completely new to everybody in baseball because Oakland has never spent money like this before, ever. So, sorry, I really dislike John Fisher, and this makes me even more mad. But it's a great deal for the A's because Brent Rooker has that 40 home run potential. He came up 1 shy of it this year, drove in 112. It's a great guy to kind of anchor the lineup. I think it's perfect for the A's, especially hitting that 30-year mark this year for Brent. Will kind of put him in his prime stage of baseball and give the A's a good almost 5 full years of him just crushing it in both Sacramento and Las Vegas. But what are your thoughts?
No, I mean, I like it for the A's. I mean, he's one of the best power hitters in the league right now. It still blows my mind that they're spending money after they leave. But it's just, I hope they don't mess this up. This rebuilding process, just don't mess it up. That's the biggest question.
I like the A's, and we'll dive into that more when we get to our hot takes in a few minutes, but the Brent Rooker signing is a big part of that hot take segment.
Yeah. Other news, Scott Boras is apparently looking for a Prince Fielder deal for Pete Alonso.
Yeah, that's absurd.
Scott Boras, what are we doing here? That's not going to happen.
No.
If Pete was smart, I think Pete would take the 90/3 that the Mets offered. I think that's the closest deal he's going to get. But something like Prince Fielder, which was 9 years at $214, that's not going to happen. So definitely with Pete coming off one of his worst years,
which is insane to say since he still had 34 home runs.
Right, but he did struggle, and he actually struggled a decent amount in the postseason besides the big home run that would send. But it's hard to give a player that type of contract when they are just coming off one of their worst seasons and they've been on the decline for a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, Pete does deserve a solid contract. He's put in a good 6 years with New York. He's only had 1 season under 30 home runs, and that was the season that we played 60 games. And I think he was even on pace for a 30-plus home run season. So obviously he's a very coveted power bat around the league, and the best ability is availability. The guy played every game last year, and the lowest amount of games he's ever played is 152. So you're going to get Pete, you're going to get a healthy slugger that can man that first base corner pretty much every day of the season. Like you said, and kind of like we've talked about before, I think the 90/3 is a good benchmark for him. Even if you want to push it to maybe 120/4, if you want to give him that extra year, I think would be a good mark for him. But giving him a deal like Prince Fielder, I think, should be nowhere in the conversation whatsoever.
Yeah, I don't see it, but I think this is classic Boris not reading the room and not judging the market. We saw this happen last year with Snell, Montgomery.
Yeah.
I think this
And
is
JD.
and JD Davis. I think this is going
Martinez.
to take, but I think this is going to, drag into spring training, and it's going to be tough. I think
I
it's
think
going to set.
he's gonna have a very similar timeline as JD Martinez and end up signing some 1-year deal somewhere, almost as like a prove it deal to see if he can stay there longer.
And I think it's going to hurt Pete in the long run because he's not going to get into spring training, and that tends to hurt players. So,
saw it last year.
I would, same thing with Bregman. Like the Bregman market has been
been very quiet.
It's been quiet, but apparently he's asking for a lot. So
Yeah, I think he wants around 175 over 5 is the last thing I saw.
yeah. So
That's
one thing-
not worth it for him.
yeah. So another thing that was unveiled was the ESPN Sunday Night Baseball schedule. So on March 30th at 7 o'clock, we'll get Braves, Padres. And it looks like the Phillies will play 3 times in the early schedule for Sunday Night Baseball. So the Phillies are going to have a lot of primetime games.
Always good.
See, I'm looking at it now. The Yankees have 2. You'll get the rematch of the World Series on June 1st in LA. Oh,
Crap.
yeah.
I'm not looking forward to that. It's going to be a rough
We also
series.
got the pitchers and catchers report dates for each team. Pitchers and catchers will report February 12th.
Under a month now. That's pretty exciting.
Yeah. So, and then we had so that's going to be interesting when everyone reports. So, but in other news I want to touch on, Dylan, me and you are big MLB The Show fans.
Unfortunately, so yeah.
The game hasn't been great the last couple of years,
bad.
and
This year was
the
bad.
fans are looking for
Return to form.
good return to form and a good version. So we have some MLB The Show news. We got a Forbes magazine article that apparently said that Barry Bonds could be in the game this year.
Come on. Bring
a lot
Barry
of
home.
people have been asking about a cover athlete.
Yeah.
So there
The
is
game's
rumors.
2 months away from supposed release normally, middle of March somewhere, and we haven't gotten a release date or a cover athlete yet, which is a little concerning.
It is a little concerning, but I went back and looked, and we didn't get last year's cover athlete until February 1st.
True.
So I would think, it is 16th or 15th now.
It's the 15th today.
15th today. So I would think, in the next couple of days, we could get something about the cover.
Hopefully. Yeah, that would be
I would say in about
some
the next couple of
positive
days
news.
or maybe a week, we could get some news about the cover athlete. Who do you think it's going to be?
I would still bank on either Soto or Bobby Witt. More so Soto because of the insane contract he just got. But, you could also throw Paul Skeens in the mix there possibly. But I would say my bet right now is Soto.
I have seen rumblings of Ellie De La Cruz being on the cover. So I kind of like that cover. But I could see Soto. I could see J-Ram. I could see Bobby Witt.
I'd love to see J-Ram on a cover. He needs to get some love, dude.
Could be cover athlete.
And not more of a game that we play, but the Top Series 1 cover athlete got named the other day as well. And big number 99, Aaron Judge, will grace the Topps cover this year. Honestly, just kind of a kudos to him, really. He deserves it. He deserves the recognition coming off his second MVP. Still arguably one of the best, if not the best player in baseball. Good for Topps, honestly. I can't really say much on it, but
I will say, for the MLB The Show fans, the cards in-game are going to usually look alike to the Topps cards, because of the partnership.
Oh, cool.
What you see, we'll throw it up on the screen now, but it could be what your cards in Diamond Dynasty for MLB The Show will look like. So
I mess with that. That's tough.
all right, Dylan, I think we got to do a deep dive into our hot takes and maybe overreactions.
I've been looking forward to this segment for about 2 weeks now, dude. I'm amped up for this.
All right. Well, you're amped up. You want to start?
You know what? Why not? So my first take for the upcoming season is that the A's will make the playoffs and they will even make the divisional, kind of like the Tigers did last year. Just like kind of sneaking in there a little bit, upset in the first round, and then maybe take whoever the 1 seed is to 4 or 5 games. I have very high hopes for the Athletics this year, but I wouldn't be too upset if they failed, because then John Fisher would get hate again. But I'm very high on them for this year with Lawrence, Butler, Geloff, Rooker, Sevy, like manning the rotation, and of course, Mason Miller coming in to shut it down. I think the A's will be a very underrated team this year, and I got them in my playoff bracket before we start the season this year.
Well, I don't think the A's are going to make the playoffs. I do believe one of their players will have a good season, and that's Lawrence Butler, like you mentioned. He had a 3.0 WAR last year, which is really good, and he did have 22 home runs. So I think he could probably mark it up to like 27, 28, maybe even 30 if he could. But
yeah, he hit his breakout.
I don't think the Athletics are going to make the playoffs, though. I think that's
maybe if they add another piece or two. But I mean, the trade for Jeffrey Springs, I think, should help too. So I would say for that is just Lawrence hit his breakout like around the end of June, early July, and then really took off in August. So I think if he kind of keeps on that same momentum, he'll be a big part in why the A's do make the playoffs and win a couple games here and mess around a little bit in October.
Yeah, I mean, I think if he can raise his average a little bit, he hit 262, which if you can get that up to like maybe the 280 mark and then tackle in a couple extra bombs with a couple more, bases driven in or RBIs, that would make him a lot better. So
I agree. And then for my number 2, this is probably a little bit more controversial than some other ones, but I think Trevor Bauer should be on an MLB roster.
I believe this as well.
I don't really see, other than the idea of teams having to deal with all the stuff from the past and whatnot, I don't see why, ability-wise and skill-wise, why he isn't on a team somewhere. Because, I mean, we still have guys that have actually been convicted for stuff like this that are on MLB rosters and have had double-digit years in the MLB. Aroldis Chapman. But, I know the Mexican League wasn't necessarily like the highest in skill. Like, you still have some former MLB players that are down there, but you also have a mid-40-year-old Robinson Cano down there who's hitting like high 300s and dropping absolute bombs there. But, I mean, Trevor had a low 2 ERA in a place that is pretty known for home runs just because of the elevation down there. And all of his stuff looked relatively good enough to still be at a major league level. So from that standpoint, I'd say he deserves at least a shot to be on one. And with some of these teams struggling to pick up a 4 or 5, he said it multiple times he would take league minimum just to get back. I don't see why not if I'm an MLB GM, but
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it has to come with a lot of the off-the-field issue that happened, but, the reaction of the fan base, and plus how people react in the locker room and in the organization, and plus, I hate to say it, but Bauer hasn't been, we see the videos of the Mexican League, and he's talking a lot of smack. So
yeah, teams aren't the biggest fan of that.
I don't think a GM or, president of baseball operations or, franchises like, well, let's go get this guy the contract. But
yeah.
I also think, he has to, he said he's willing to sign for the league minimum, but I mean, he has to kind of force his hand a little bit, I think.
I mean, he'll either get a shot or he won't at this point, but I think the window on that is pretty much closing with this year. So if it happens this year, then he'll be back. But if it doesn't, I don't ever see it happening again in the future. So,
all right. Yeah. Well, my hot take is going to be the Dodgers are going to struggle in 2025. Now,
define struggle.
I think it's going to be harder for them to get back to the World Series. And I think there could be a stretch where they do not play as great. And, if they don't come out the gate ready to play baseball, this could, it could hurt them. Now, Yet the roster is a lot better, but it's so hard to go back to back.
Yeah, we haven't seen a back-to-back champ since the Yanks back in the 90s, early 2000s.
It's hard, just in sports in general. I mean, we know the Chiefs have done it. They'll go for that three-peat. But, it's hard. I mean, it takes, a really star-studded roster that the Dodgers do have, but it's hard. I mean, it's hard to play 182 games and then go play a postseason and go win that. So it's gonna.
But I mean, even in the Chiefs case scenario, they're the first team to do it in 20 some odd years. Like,
right.
In any sport, it's hard to go back to back.
So I think let's the Dodgers are a good team, but let's hold that the
repeat champion talks.
Yeah, let's hold on that for a while.
I like that one. I like that. My number 3 may be on a little bit of a hater mentality, but I think the Mets are missing the playoffs this year.
I totally agree. They don't get feedback. There's no way they're going to make the playoffs.
I mean, their roster alone isn't the strongest head to toe. Like Soto, Lindor, Vientos, they all obviously stick out and are very solid at bats in the lineup. Even Nimmo and Alvarez, and I think Winker's still with them, right?
No, he's a free agent.
Oh, he's a free agent right now? Okay, my bad. Like Alvarez and Nimmo are still there, and then you get McNeil back. You have a decent lineup there. Not a great lineup, but a decent lineup that improved by getting Soto. My issue with them is their rotation in the bullpen. I do think their rotation is a little bit underrated after getting Manaea back. They have a decent one, but there's just too many question marks from the 3 through 5, and the bullpen especially, to really make me confident in saying that they're contending for the NL East. Because we saw it with Diaz last year, that he was really shaky. And I know he was coming back from an injury, but still, they were putting him out there and putting him in those situations where he needed to get it done, and he didn't. But I don't know. It's just it's almost like a gut feeling, basically, that's just saying that the Mets are gonna Met, and they're not gonna make the postseason this year.
Yeah, I mean, the lineup is okay, but it's not great. But the bullpen and the starting pitching, I think, is, that's what wins baseball games. And I just don't like it. I mean, it's going to be hard to contend with the Phillies. It's hard to contend with the Braves, and it's going to be hard to contend with the Nationals. So
Nationals got a nice little team down there. They'll be good this year.
I think unless Lindor's going to go play at an MVP level and you're going to get Soto at an MVP level, and you're going to get good pitching, I don't see it. So I'm going to agree with you. I think the Mets are going to miss the playoffs. And I think it's Soto and might struggle a little bit. But,
ooh.
All right. But my hot take is the Yankees are way better without Juan Soto right now, after the moves they have done.
I love it.
You bring in Devin Williams, you bring in Paul Goldschmidt, you bring in Cody Bellinger, and you bring in Max Fried.
I love that.
This is I think this is one of Cashman's best off seasons by far.
I mean, we've said it kind of time and time again, a little bit of just how he's been relentlessly making moves in the office to try and compensate for what we lost. And honestly, we made up a good amount of it after losing out on Soto. I wouldn't say this is necessarily one of his best off seasons ever, but I would say that this is one of his best jobs pivoting after a move didn't go through for them, because obviously Soto is a generational talent at the plate that you would like to keep on your team, but you also pretty much bankrupt yourself from doing a lot of other stuff by going out and signing him. So Cashman did a really good job helping to bolster the rotation, bolster the bullpen, and get a couple pieces that we needed, especially letting go of Rizzo. And I'm not sure if we're going to re-sign Verdugo, but filling that outfield void that we needed to with Soto gone. So I would agree with you from that idea that he's done a really good job pivoting and picking up different pieces that can equal to possibly what Soto's impact was.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is just, I think they're a way better team right now, than just having Soto. And I know Soto, you look at WAR, I think he had, like an 8?
It was the highest of his career. Yeah, it was like a 8.1 or something like that.
But I think the Yankees they're a better team right now. And I think I think they need a leadoff hitter, but I think they'll find that. And I think they're way better than they were last year right now.
I would agree. Especially in the lineup department, I feel like it's a little bit more balanced with not just relying too much on Soto and Judge. You have a full season of Jazz Chisholm now, and people like Bellinger and Goldschmidt that can kind of help those power numbers a little bit if Stanton goes down or something like that. And Wells and Volpe are solid additions as well. All right, so moving on to my number 4. I know we were just kind of praising the Yankees a little bit for their offseason moves, but this is really going to give me physical pain to say this. But I'm going to praise our divisional rival a little bit here and say that the Red Sox are going to take the AL East this year.
Wow. That's big time for you to say that.
I may have just kind of threw up in my brain while saying that and thinking it and writing it down for this, but honestly, the rotation is stacked. They have so many options that they can go to if injuries happen or whatnot. And I just think that the team that they have currently, position player-wise, is not the best on paper, but they can definitely play together as a team, which I think is more important than anything. And honestly, what's more scary than anything else is that they can play well together as a team. And I think with that, the Red Sox will kind of take a charge this year and get back on top. Oh my God, sorry.
I liked what the Red Sox have done this all season, but the line, I think offensively, there's questions, but I don't know. I think this is you overreacting. I think you're just overthinking, the Red Sox. And I think the Yankees are going to win the AL East step. So.
I wouldn't mind that either. I'd much rather that than the Red Sox, but I don't know. I like the way that their team is setting themselves up for this year.
Yeah. Well, speaking of a division rival, a player in the division, I think is going to raise their game to get a big payday, and that's going to be Vladimir Guerrero Jr. I think he's going to raise his game to where we could see him get that big payday.
So are you saying Vlad MVP this year? Come on. I know you want to.
I want to, but there's another player who in the AL who's, Mr. Regular Season.
Oh, here we go.
Yeah, I think he can definitely be in MVP conversations. But I think he's going to raise his game to where we saw this with Soto, where the market was at that $500 million, and then it got him an extra $200 million just because of how well he played. So I think right now where the market is for him, I think he wants to raise his game so he can get that payday like Soto. But we'll see what happens.
See that. Okay. Are you ready for my number 5? It's got a lot of layers to it. It's kind of a big one.
Okay, let's hear it.
So, part 1 of it, Tigers are going to fail this season. They're not going to make it back to the playoffs. They're not going to do as well. Okay. The second part of that is that Skubal will then get dealt to San Diego to help the Padres win the division.
Wow. I could see San Diego making the big-time move to get him. But I could see the Tigers, if they don't add anyone, could struggle. But that's going to be it. I wonder how much you would have to give up for him.
I could see Cronenworth being part of a deal for him.
Okay.
And maybe Jeremiah Estrada or Robert Suarez or something like that. Or one of their higher end prospects. Because I think with Higgy leaving, it kind of puts them in a position to potentially call up Salas this year. So they might throw in Campusano in that deal or something like that if they're really high on Salas. But yeah, if we're looking at the Tigers the way they are right now, their offense will not succeed in 2025 as well as it did in 2024. Because really, they got hot at the right time and pitched their butts off to get to the postseason. I'm not sure how they can really sustain that for another year. So I see them kind of maybe starting out okay and then really fizzling out and then being in almost a worse position than they were last year to say that, hey, we don't really have a shot here. We're going to try and move him out, and it'll be the extra push San Diego needs to then take the division from the struggling Dodgers.
Yeah, I could see it happening. I just wonder where the Diamondbacks are going to play. Because they have a good team. And where do the Diamondbacks, either the Padres or the Diamondbacks are going to miss out on the playoffs?
I don't think so. I think all three of them make it, to be honest with you.
Really?
Mm-hmm. I think it'll be all three of them, Braves, Phillies, and then whoever ends up winning the NL Central because it's a complete mess over there.
Yeah.
That would be my pick for it as of right now, but obviously that could change.
We've seen the Padres make the big-time move. AJ Brzezinski, he can make that big-time moves.
I agree. All right, Matt, what's your last one? Hit me with it.
All right, my last one, talking about the Central. The Reds will win the NL Central. Surprise everyone.
I love that. Yes, sir.
I think, kind of hope, this person doesn't get the cover athlete curse, Nelly De La Cruz. But
dude, what do you mean curse? Vlad had a great year this year.
No, but we've seen it in, Jazz that 1 year.
23?
Yeah.
They made the playoffs.
Yeah, but he wasn't, good.
Shohei won MVP the year he was on the cover.
Yeah, but, we've seen a little bit of a curse.
I guess. Tatis did end up getting caught with steroids this year.
Yeah, so...
And then Javier Baez fell off a cliff after he got put on the cover.
Yeah. So, hopefully that doesn't happen, but I think the Reds could win the NL Central.
I actually love that, because...
It's going to be hard, because, I saw a report that the Pirates were willing to trade Ke'Bryan Hayes, or he has to out. I don't know how true it is. It wasn't confirmed, but it was circulating. So that's why I didn't put in this episode.
They should trade him. He stinks.
The Pirates haven't signed anyone. So it's I don't know if they're going to be able to raise their win total. And the NL Central just sucks. It's not.
The NL Central is very weak. It can be very hit or miss with a lot of teams.
Yeah.
And I don't think enough of them play sound baseball, to be completely honest with you, to be consistent on both sides. So it's always kind of a toss-up every year. It's been the Brewers' division for the last decade or so.
I think it's not.
Since the Cubs run ended, it's pretty much been the Brewers' division, with the Cardinals kind of throwing in there every once in a while. But I really like the idea that the Reds kind of get back on top this year.
Yeah. So, but I will say, as we're recording this episode, we just had a report come through, and we talked about Vladdy, but the Mets have checked in.
The Mets checked in on him. I did see that update. I was going to throw that in during the Pete Alonso talks, but I wasn't sure about it, and then I completely forgot it.
It's confirmed the Mets have checked in on Vladdy. Do you think they do the trade?
If they don't get Pete, I could see them being very aggressive in pursuing for it, where then I might have to rethink my Mets missing the playoffs take.
Yeah, it just came through the that it's legitimate. So, we don't like to put out false information.
False reports or anything. Yeah.
Keep it real and hang in the dugout. So, I just want to say, if the Mets can do this. Now, obviously, they're going to have to give up a decent amount. Yeah. But what do you think the package looks like?
I think Beatty's in that deal.
I think Beatty and Mauricio are definitely in the deal.
Yeah, I forgot about Ronnie.
I think Acuna's in the deal.
Acuna's definitely off limits, dude.
I think the Blue Jays are going to want him in the deal.
I would understand them wanting him in the deal. I would want Luis Angel, but I don't see them getting him from the Mets. But Steve Cohen's basically a fan that runs a team, so maybe.
Then moves the needle.
If you can't bring back Vlad, I wouldn't do it, because I don't think it'd be worth it. Losing Acuna and even Mauricio, because I think Mauricio is going to be a stud. But Beatty I could do without.
If they get Vlad, Soto, and Lindor, those are the three biggest.
That's an insane big three, dude.
That's an insane big three. I feel like
that is an insane big three.
I feel like baseball is headed towards this, where we saw this in basketball for a stint, where it's you have to get your
teams are getting their own big three.
You get your big three, and then it's that big three is, the centerpiece. But I don't. It's not fully like basketball, but you see it with lineups. It's all right. Well, who's your big? Who's your 1, 2, 3?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah. So we'll see what happens.
It should be a fun few weeks here while we get Sasaki's deal all taken care of in the next week or so, and pitchers and catchers reporting in under a month now. So baseball is right around the corner. I'm excited.
I can't wait. Can't wait for this weather to break. It's been cold.
Dude, it's supposed to be so cold next week.
Yeah, it's been cold.
It's supposed to be a high of 17. That's ridiculous.
That's bad. So,
but baseball start back up.
Yeah.
I think that's it for today's episode. Thank you guys for tuning in. Don't forget to follow all the socials, the YouTube, the Instagram, and the TikTok. Matt, you got anything? Or are you good?
No, I mean, we keep you guys pretty much up to date. Any big moves that go on. I mean, especially if the Mets are calling about Vladdy. I mean, we'll keep you up with the keep you up to date with the biggest rumors and stuff like that. So
but
definitely follow that. And you get information about the show. So.
Yeah, the consistency should definitely kind of come back a little bit now that I'm settled in back at school. And Matt, you're doing your own thing at work and whatnot. I think that should all be kind of squared away and settled down. Yeah. So the consistency should come back. But yeah, really good episode today. Really a lot of good stuff. I'm excited for the future.
Yeah, I will say we're probably going to do divisional breakdowns later.
Closer, that's probably closer to the season starting and whatnot.
Yeah, we're waiting for this free agent Cold War to break. It feels like you're in the Cold War and it's like just going to sit here. But, I feel, it's going to break at some point. And it's going to, the Sasaki news when he signs, that would be big. But when Pete signs or Bregman signs or Santander or Flaherty, who else am I missing? Tanner Scott, that's a big one.
That is a big one.
You saw there hasn't been much on his market, but I know the Braves were big on him. Apparently the Braves didn't make an offer, but they were trying to pursue him. The Braves get Tanner Scott.
That's pretty big.
I'll be a little upset. But I think, I think the Yankees and the Phillies are pretty much done spending money. I don't know how you feel about that.
I think they're still in the market for a middle infielder, more second base side, and maybe an extra bullpen piece. But I don't know outside of that.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the Phillies are pretty much just done and they're waiting for an extra bullpen piece or, a trade come their way. So,
yeah. But
other than that, I mean, I think we're pretty much done for this episode. Yeah. So,
with all that said and done, again, thank you guys for listening. And until next time, we'll just be hanging in the dugout. Thanks, guys.